My life be like, yeah. My life be like, yeah.
Good morning, Pops the Paladin here, and today we're going to talk about gear, talents, and rotation for 7.15 Nighthold. All of the gear that I'm going to be talking about tonight is based on mythic level difficulty, and I'm skipping downing bosses for right now to tell you what gear you should be shooting for, as the majority of you are moving through raid. On top of that, my video editing has gone down since we're on mythic progression right now. So that's going to kind of change how we're going to do videos as of right now. Hopefully this gearing guide will help you out in terms of what you should be shooting for. Keep in mind, this is an opinion piece. This is the gear that I will be going for. Nothing is hard and fast, especially when it comes to legendaries, because who knows which ones you have. So keeping that in mind, I will also link below the Google Documents guide that I have for all of my gear in terms of how I track what I need per boss, so that way I know which bosses I need to bonus roll, i.e. for me I'm bonus rolling on Scorpion and Gul'dan, whereas you might be bonus rolling on something else. It's just a good way to keep in mind what you actually need versus always having to open up the dungeon journal, so you can look for that below as well. As always, I'll link logs, but really they mean nothing for this specific video, but I always link them below so that way you can compare and contrast how you're doing as a tank in comparison to what I show you on my videos. So jumping right into it, the way you're going to read the spreadsheet, if you look at the spreadsheet, if not, the way I talk about it is both survival and DPS builds. So when I put out a number, let's say for Scorpion, I need 6 items. However, one of those items matches, so truly it's only 5 items. So keep that in mind as you look at the spreadsheet and when I'm talking. So let's start off right away. Scorpion. 6 total items from this boss. For our survival-based build, we're looking to gather Animated Exoskeleton, which will grant us 3,095 stamina. Now, I've said on previous videos I don't like being a stamina-based tank solely because really that means we're lowering our stats on everything else for our own survivability, our own damage reduction, and we become mana sponges. But there are certain fights in which a stamina based trinket will be beneficial, especially when you get into the later fights of Mythic Nighthold. Gul'dan, for instance, will blast healers away from you on the platform with fell bonds, and they might not be in range of you, and you might need that extra little bit of stamina to survive breaking Gul'dan's power levels at about 30% or so. So it could be beneficial. Animated Exoskeleton will also give you a 30% damage reduction for 15 seconds, preventing 1.05 million damage, and that's got a 1.5 minute cooldown, so a pretty solid trinket for survivability. The next thing we're going to be looking for in Scorpion, which matches both our DPS build and our survival build, is our first relic here of Manotoxin Gland. Now, what Manotoxin Gland is going to do is reduce the cooldown of our Ardent Defender by 10 seconds, and I've stated in previous videos that reduction of Ardent Defender is pretty huge for DPS because of our painful truths. Every time we get meleeed, we throw out damage. However, it's also really beneficial because 1, it's a save life, so if I take a massive amount of damage and I die, I actually revive myself. And 2, it's just a flat damage reduction all around, so why wouldn't you want to reduce that, especially with the talents that we already have our artifact power that we're already putting into our weapon, reducing Ardent Defender time anyways. It makes complete sense, and you should be striving to get at least 2, if not 3 relics for Ardent Defender. For our DPS build, we're going to be looking for Radiant String of Scorpid Eyes, our first neck piece out of here. What this one's going to do is it's going to grant us 922 crit and 2011 haste. Our next item for DPS is Laystone Kickers, which gives us 752 crit and 487 haste. And followed by our first trinket for the DPS build, Claw of Crystalline Scorpid. Now for Ret Paladins, this is actually considered a very good trinket, especially when paired with 2 DPS Legendaries. What this is going to do is it's going to give us 2063 strength, and throw out 187,016 damage to all enemies in front of us. So it will work very well for AoE fights, as long as we keep our enemies in front of us and not surrounding us, as the majority of some tanks tend to do, which is bad, bad, bad. So those are the 6 items we need from Scorpirion. Moving on to Chronomatic Anomaly. We need 4 items from this one. Our second relic comes in as Flickering Time Spark, and this one is going to increase the effectiveness of our Shield of the Righteous by 3%. We're going to use this for both our survival and our DPS build. Our second trinket already, bam! You're all set for survival build would be the Royal Dagger Hilt. This is going to do, it's going to be another life save, up to 2.2 million of an overkill. Here's the caveat between Royal Dagger Hilt and Ardent Defender. Royal Dagger Hilt will override your Ardent Defender and make it null and void. So if you know you're going to die and take less than 2.2 million overkill, let Royal Dagger Hilt survive and bring you back to life, and then use your Ardent Defender. Don't try to use them at the same time. And this is very counterintuitive as a Prot Paladin, but it's really important to know that Royal Dagger Hilt is going to override your Ardent Defender. So keep that in mind. Moving over to our DPS build, the only thing that changes here between Flickering Time Spell is our Chrono-Tempered Leg Plates. Chrono-Tempered Leg Plates are going to give us 507 haste, 1,145 mastery. So those are the 4 items we need for Chronomatic Anomaly. Next, Trilliax. Who gives a damn? We need 0 pieces from him. Let's move on. Next, Spellblade Allurial. We need 1 piece from this boss, and it is for our survival build. It is Captain's Parade Breastplate, and that is 697 haste and 986 versatility. Moving on to Tankadin, the 4 pieces from there. We will need our tier 19 shoulders for both our survival and our DPS build. These shoulders are mouth-watering at 496 haste and 766 versatility. Fantastic. If you do not have Chain of Theron, your best in slot waist piece is also from Tankadin, where it is the Gore-Smeared Abysmal Waistplate that goes for survival and DPS build. For our DPS build, we would like to have the trinket, and here is our second trinket for DPS, already only 5 bosses in. Fang of Tankadin, 2,162 strength, plus a 4,800 leech for 12 seconds every minute. Kind of makes us like Demon Hunters at this point in time when they pop meta. What a great amount of leech that we can gain. Moving on, our next boss is Crosis. Crosis, we're looking for DPS build tank with Bridge Breaker Gauntlets. Bridge Breaker Gauntlets will grant us 387 crit, 875 haste. So only 1 item from Crosis, and it is for DPS. Next, High Botanist Teleron. Technically we need 2 pieces of loot from High Botanist, but it is really only 1 piece because it is the Ring of Braided Stems, and it is for both specs. It will give us 1,800 haste and 1,200 versatility. Moving on to Star Augur Atreus, we're going to need 5 items from this boss. For our survival-based tank, we're going to need our Tier Gloves. Our Tier Gloves are going to give us 821 mastery and 442 versatility. For both our DPS and survival build, we're going to want Astromancer's Great Cloak. Astromancer's Great Cloak is going to grant us 676 haste and 270 versatility. Our next item for survival-based tank is Sabatons of Unchanging Fate, and these are for our feet, 875 haste, 387 mastery. And then finally our neck piece, which took us a while to get there, but Brooch of Astral Scryer. And the Brooch of Astral Scryer is going to grant us 1,382 haste and 1,641 versatility. My, the versatility. For our DPS build, the only thing we needed was Astromancer's Great Cloak. So those are the 5 items from Star Augur. Next, Grand Matrix Elisande. 4 items here. We're looking for our tier 19 helm for both our DPS and survival build because it will grant us 517 crit and 1167 haste. as well as for both survival and DPS builds, we're also looking to gain the eternally recurring bracers, which will give us 351 crit and 595 haste. So those are the items for Grand Magistrix Elisande. Lastly, Gul'dan. Kind of a hard boss here, as 2 days ago Exorcist was the first guild to down it on mythic level difficulty, and it took quite a long time. Finally, nobody downed the last boss in a raid 2 days into it. Yay for Blizzard for making something difficult. However, incoming nerf, because it was so hard. Watch it get nerfed pretty hard, I bet. First things we're looking for our survival build, tier 19 legs. That'll give us 1094 crit and 589 versatility. For both our survival and our DPS build, we're looking for Ring of the Scoured Clan, which is going to grant us 890 haste and 2227 mastery. Oh my gosh, that is some mastery. For our survival build and our DPS build, this is where our last relic will come into place, and this will be Lion's Head Lapel Clasp, which once again is a reduction on the cooldown timer for Ardent Defender. For our DPS build, we're looking for Breastplate of the Remembered King, which is going to give us 1115 haste and 600 mastery. And then we're also going to look for nothing else, because holy cow, you guys have finished both specs if you managed to get all the loot. So let's take a look at what it goes on here when we have all of our stats combined. For survival tank, your strength, keep in mind this is with 0 artifact power, because I don't know where you reside. I'm at 54, but you might be at 37, and another player might be at 12, so all of these things are going to change. So at an artifact power of 0, your strength is 29,392, your crit will be 15.2, haste of 25%, mastery of 18.8, versatility of 14.2. Your max health will be 5.3 million, remember, without artifact power. Your armor will be 6100, remember, once again, without artifact power. And your parry will be 18.32 for your survival build. So you'll have an unbelievable amount of health in comparison to our DPS build, which will have 33,195 strength, 14.5% crit, 30.5% haste, 20.2% mastery, 6.5% versatility, a whopping 4.9 million health without artifact power, 6,095 armor without artifact power, and a parry of 19.5. Once again, your stats may vary, especially if you get Titan Forge, if you get anything with a socket. If you're not using this exact list, obviously your stats are going to vary, but if you were to follow my specific gearing guide, this is what you should be expecting. Now, let's move into some talents, huh? Talents haven't changed for 7.1.5. However, usually I only talk about the DPS talents. I'm also going to talk about survival in this section. So, quick review for our DPS talents. They haven't changed. Blessed Hammer, First Avenger, Blinding Light, Blessing of the Spell Warding, unless you're fighting Gul'dan, and then it should be Cavalier because there's a lot of movement, especially with Felbons. Hand of the Protector, because there shouldn't be any other discussion in this one, unless you maybe have Sauron's Resolve, which grants you an additional charge of Light's Protector. Consecrated Ground, unless you don't have a Holy Paladin, and then you should run Judgment of Light. And obviously for DPS build, there is no other goal except Seraphim. For our survival-based talents, it is Blessed Hammer, unless you have very, very, very high mastery. That was 3 varies, and it's a single target fight. Then you'll run Holy Shield. For First Avenger, obviously for survival talents, but if you're very scared, run Bastion of Light, because you'll gain 3 extra charges of Shield of the Righteous, especially if you have a very high level Horn of Valor. That's really beneficial if you want to get a huge burst on the pole. Blinding Lights, because we aren't going to be stunning anything really in these fights. Blessing of the Spell Warding, unless we're fighting Gul'dan, then it's Cavalier. Hand of the Protector, once again, unless you have Sauron's Resolve and blah blah blah. Consecrated Ground, same thing as the other one, and here's where it changes. Righteous Protector with Chains of Theron, because you have that additional 50% healing every time you pop Avenging Wrath, and you have a 30% damage increase every time you pop Avenging Wrath. You can use Last Defender as long as there's a lot of adds, but Righteous Protector is really good because if you pair it with Bastion of Light, then every time you pop that, you'll have 3 Shield of the Righteous off the get-go, plus popping Bastion of Light after you burn through them, so there's an additional 3, and that is right there a huge cooldown reduction on Avenging Wrath. So you can, theoretically, with very good procs, get your Avenging Wrath to happen every 50 seconds. Holy crap. But since you can't guarantee it, the average is probably more like the minute and 10-second mark, which is still a pretty good damage, or a pretty good CD reduction. But it's really good for increasing your survivability because of how many times you can have Avenging Wrath up and running. And it's very good paired with Bastion of Light, and it's ultra very good. Weird grammar. But when paired with Chains of Theron. In terms of our rotation, for our DPS rotation, it doesn't change, but just a reminder in case you haven't seen any other videos, we're going to pre-pot Avenging Shield, Seraphim, Avenging Wrath, Judgment, Consecration, Shield of the Righteous, and then kind of whatever comes off cooldown as long as Judgment is above all others. Because we want to make sure we have 2 charges of Shield of the Righteous in order to pop a good Seraphim, because we want the maximum amount of uptime on it. For survivability, there's 2 different ways in which you can start off a fight. Pre-pot, as always, Avenging Shield, Consecration, Avenging Wrath, 3 charges of Shield of the Righteous, Bastion, an additional 3 charges, Judgment. And then kind of keep it going from there. That'll give you a huge pull. I've hit sometimes in the range of 1.4 million, and that was back when I had an item level of like 884. So keep that in mind as you go up in your item levels. If you're very scared about staying alive, pre-pot, Avenging Shield, Consecration, Avenging Wrath, 2 charges of Shield of the Righteous, Judgment, Shield of the Righteous, save your Bastion until you spent all your Shield of the Righteous and you say, oh damn, something's coming, I need a Shield of the Righteous, Bastion, Shield of the Righteous to save yourself. So really you're using that as a failsafe as opposed to a DPS increase. So it's whichever way you feel like actually playing your specific rotation in terms of survivability, keeping and or burning through Bastion. So there you have it. There's kind of a quick rundown of gear, talents, and your rotation. What I want you to keep in mind with gear is this is how I'm specifically gearing my Paladin. This isn't an end-all be-all guide of this is what you need. This is just my recommendations. If you have any comments that you want to leave below, please feel free. If you have any questions as to why I chose some of the gear, also please leave some comments below. I will try to get back to you as fast as I can. And remember, I will add the links below. Good luck on getting your gear in Nighthold, and I wish you all the best in your kills.